What if the person you shared your life with started feeling like a stranger right in front of your eyes? Claire once thought marriage meant safety. Soft mornings, quiet dinners, small smiles that said we're okay. For years, she and Ethan had built a calm, ordinary life together in their little 2-story house just outside Portland. It was the kind of house people dreamed of. White curtains, a porch swing, a dog named Milo who waited by the door every evening. But lately, even Milo had stopped wagging his tail when Ethan came home. Something had changed. At first, Claire couldn't name it. It was small things. The way Ethan stopped making coffee for her in the mornings, how he left early for work without finishing breakfast, how he started sleeping on the edge of the bed instead of next to her. Their conversations had become short, polite, and distant. Every sentence sounded rehearsed. She told herself it was just work stress. Ethan was a project manager. Deadlines could be brutal, but the truth was harder. Ethan wasn't tired from work. He was tired of them. One evening, Claire stood by the sink, washing dishes as rain tapped softly on the window. She looked into the glass and saw his reflection. Ethan on the couch, phone in hand, smiling. A soft smile, the kind that used to be for her. Her chest tightened. It was such a small thing, yet it felt like proof of something she didn't want to believe. She dried her hands, tried to sound casual. "Who's that?" Ethan didn't look up. "Just work stuff, Claire. Don't overthink. Don't overthink." That phrase had become his shield lately. Every time she reached out, he hid behind it. She forced a laugh, nodded, and went back to the sink. But inside, her thoughts were spiraling. When had he started guarding his phone? When did he begin smiling at messages that weren't hers? That night, while Ethan showered, she sat on the bed, staring at the half-empty side of the mattress. The rain outside grew louder, wind shaking the windows. She thought about opening his phone, just to know, just to breathe again. But she couldn't. She wasn't ready for whatever truth might live there. Instead, she lay back down and stared at the ceiling, counting every creak, every distant rumble of thunder. She remembered their early days. Long drives with music playing, coffee dates that stretched for hours, whispered promises at midnight. She remembered how Ethan used to watch her while she talked, like every word mattered. That version of him felt like someone she'd dreamed once, not someone she'd loved. The next morning, she made pancakes, his favorite, hoping maybe he'd notice. He didn't. He ate 2 bites, grabbed his bag, and said he'd be late again. "Late again?" she asked softly. He hesitated, kissed her on the forehead. Quick, almost automatic. "Big week at work, babe. Don't wait up." When the door closed, the house fell silent again. Only the sound of the clock ticking filled the air. Claire looked around. The couch they bought together, the photos on the wall, the mug with both their initials. Everything looked perfect, but it wasn't. Later that day, she went through his laundry and found a faint scent she didn't recognize. Something floral, not her perfume. Her hands froze around the shirt. For a second, she wanted to believe it was from the office. Maybe a coworker's perfume in the air. But her gut whispered something else. Still, she said nothing. She folded the shirt neatly and placed it back in the drawer. Over the next few days, Ethan became even more distant. He spent longer hours at work, came home smelling of rain and someone else's laughter. He kept his phone face down, locked, even during dinner. Claire began noticing everything, the shift in tone, the new cologne, the sudden gym membership he never mentioned. Every piece added up to a picture she wasn't ready to see, but she wasn't the type to explode. She watched quietly, listened carefully, and waited. Waiting had become her survival. Then, one evening, as she sat alone with a cup of tea, lightning flashed across the sky, lighting up the whole house. In that brief moment, she saw his jacket hanging by the door, and something fell out of its pocket. She bent down and picked it up. A receipt from a cafe. A date and time printed clearly. 2 drinks. 1 slice of cheesecake. Not unusual, except the cafe was in a part of town Ethan never visited. And the date? The night he said he'd been working late. Her pulse quickened. The world felt smaller, the silence louder. She stared at the receipt like it was a confession written in ink. But then thunder cracked outside, so loud it made her flinch. The lights flickered. The house plunged into temporary darkness. When they came back on, everything looked the same. Except her heart wasn't. Ethan came home later, drenched from the rain, smiling tiredly. "You're still up?" She nodded. "Yeah, couldn't sleep." He placed his phone on the counter, kissed her cheek, and went upstairs. Claire stayed still, staring at the glowing screen he left behind. One message lit up, a name she'd never seen before. Lena. The phone buzzed again, lighting the dark kitchen. She didn't touch it. She just stood there, frozen, the rain hammering against the windows. For a long moment, she told herself it could be nothing. A colleague, a client, a friend. But the faint smile that had crossed his face earlier, she couldn't forget that. When she finally went to bed, she couldn't bring herself to lie beside him. She sat by the window, watching lightning dance over the horizon. The storm outside was wild and untamed, but the one inside her was quiet, cold, certain. And as thunder rolled again, a strange calm washed over her. Maybe this was it, the moment before everything changed. Because deep down, Claire already knew the truth. She just didn't have the courage to say it out loud. The rain came harder that week, almost as if the sky knew something was about to break. Claire sat by the window, watching drops race down the glass, her thoughts louder than the thunder outside. Ethan had been coming home late every night, always with the same excuse. Just work. But work didn't leave lipstick smudges on coffee cups or perfume on his collar. Still, she said nothing. She wanted to hear the truth from him, not a stranger. That Thursday night, the storm was fierce. Lightning cracked, and wind howled through the trees. Claire sat on the couch with her phone in hand, trying not to stare at the clock. Midnight passed. No message from Ethan, no call. Just silence and the soft, endless roar of rain. She scrolled through their old photos, trips, birthdays, Sunday mornings. He looked so real in those pictures, so hers. How could someone so close feel so far away now? Her chest ached with a quiet kind of fear. Not of losing him, but of already having lost him without knowing when it happened. Then her phone buzzed. A new message. Unknown number. She frowned and unlocked it. He's with me. You deserve to know. For a few seconds she couldn't breathe. Her heart seemed to stop mid-beat. She blinked, reading the message again, hoping she'd misread it. But then another came, this time an image. Blurry but unmistakable. Ethan's jacket. Ethan's car, parked outside a cafe she didn't recognize. Her fingers went cold. Lightning flashed again, lighting up the living room. Claire stared at the photo, her stomach twisting. Maybe it was an old picture, she thought. Maybe someone was playing a cruel joke. But deep inside, she knew it wasn't. She stood, pacing back and forth. The sound of rain hitting the roof filled the air like a heartbeat she couldn't control. She wanted to call him, to scream, to ask who she was. But she didn't. Instead, she waited. At 12:43 a.m., the sound of a car door closing echoed outside. Then footsteps. The front door opened and Ethan walked in. Soaked, tired, pretending everything was normal. "Hey," he said softly, pulling off his wet jacket. "You're still up?" Claire tried to keep her voice steady. "Yeah, couldn't sleep." He smiled faintly, not noticing how pale she looked. Traffic was a nightmare. Half the roads are flooded. She nodded, her hands trembling slightly. "You must be exhausted." "Completely," he said, kissing her forehead. "Let's talk in the morning, okay?" She smiled weakly and watched him walk upstairs. His footsteps faded, the door closed, and the silence grew heavier. When she finally sat down, her phone was still glowing on the table. That message, that photo, was still there, waiting like an open wound. Claire felt a tear roll down her cheek, but she wiped it away quickly. Crying wouldn't fix anything. She thought about replying, asking the unknown number who they were, demanding proof. But what if it was a trap? What if it was someone trying to ruin them? Yet if it wasn't, if it was real, then her marriage was already gone. The next morning, Ethan acted like nothing had happened. He joked about the weather, made coffee, even complimented her hair. It was like living with an actor. Every move practiced, every smile planned. "Big meeting today," he said while tying his tie. "I might be late again tonight." She looked at him, searching for a flicker of guilt. There was none. Only calm, careful normalcy. "Of course," she said quietly. After he left, she went to her desk and opened her laptop. She searched the cafe name from the receipt she'd found earlier. It was a small place near downtown. Warm lights, wooden tables, a cozy spot perfect for long conversations. Her chest tightened. She hovered over the address on the map, debating if she should go there. But what would she do? Walk in and see if he was there? No, she couldn't bear that image. Not yet. That night, the storm returned. The wind rattled the windows again, and the same sound of rain filled the lonely house. Ethan texted around 8 p.m. "Working late. Don't wait up." She stared at the message for a long time. Then, with trembling fingers, she replied, "Okay, be safe." But she didn't mean it. She wasn't okay. At 9:30, another message came, from the same unknown number. "He's here again." Attached was another photo, this time clearer. Ethan sitting by the window, leaning forward, smiling at someone across the table. Only the edge of a woman's arm was visible. The rest was hidden. Claire's breath caught in her throat. Her hands shook so badly she almost dropped the phone. The thunder roared, shaking the walls. She pressed the phone to her chest, trying not to cry. It wasn't about anger anymore. It was about disbelief. How could someone she trusted with her whole heart look that happy somewhere else? By the time Ethan returned home, it was past midnight again. He smelled faintly of rain and coffee, the same cafe scent from the photo. "Hey," he said, trying to sound casual. "You're still up again?" She forced a smile. "Couldn't sleep," he nodded. "You worry too much. Everything okay?" Claire looked at him, wondering how he could ask that question so easily. How he could look at her without flinching. She nodded slowly. "Yeah, everything's fine." He smiled and kissed her cheek. "Good. You know I love you, right?" Her throat tightened. "Yeah," she whispered. "I know." He went upstairs, humming softly, leaving her alone again with her thoughts, and the truth. The rain kept falling outside, steady and relentless. She picked up her phone and stared at the photo again. Ethan smiling at someone else, a version of him she didn't recognize. Her tears fell quietly, one after another, blending with the sound of the storm. Then the phone buzzed again. Same number, one final message. "You deserve better than this." Claire's hands trembled as she stared at those words. For the first time, she realized she didn't want confirmation anymore. She wanted freedom from the doubt that had eaten her alive. She took a deep breath, wiped her face, and looked toward the stairs where Ethan was sleeping peacefully. Lightning flashed again, lighting up the entire living room. And in that flash, Claire made a silent promise. She would get her answers. No more waiting, no more pretending. Because sometimes silence doesn't protect love. It kills it slowly. What if the truth you feared finally stood right in front of you? The storm had passed, but the air in the house still felt heavy. The sky outside was clear, but inside Claire's heart, the clouds hadn't moved. She went through her days like a shadow, smiling when she had to, speaking when spoken to, pretending she didn't already know the truth. Ethan was careful now. Too careful. He no longer left his phone lying around. He had new habits, taking calls in the backyard, locking his laptop screen the second she walked by, and spending longer hours at work. But even the best lies have cracks. One evening, she came home early from the store and found his laptop open on the dining table. The screen was still glowing, an unread message blinking softly in the corner. The sender's name froze her heart. Lena. Her eyes moved quickly. "Miss our talks. Tonight was beautiful." Claire didn't read further. She didn't have to. Her chest tightened, her breath shaking. The words were simple, but they were enough to destroy everything she'd tried to believe. She closed the laptop gently, as if afraid the truth might scream out loud. Her hands trembled, but her face stayed calm. She had always been calm. even when her world was falling apart. That night, she didn't confront him. She cooked dinner, poured wine, and listened to him talk about his long day. Every word felt like glass in her throat. When he finally looked up from his plate, he noticed her silence. "You okay?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Yeah, just tired." It was strange. Even now, she didn't want to fight. She wanted to understand. Why him? Why her? Why now? Later that night, while Ethan showered, Claire sat on the edge of the bed, holding her phone. She thought about calling the unknown number that had sent her those messages before. Maybe it was Lena, maybe not. But what would she even say? The truth was already there. The only question left was, what would she do with it? When Ethan came out of the bathroom, she was still sitting there, her face unreadable. He noticed. "Hey," he said gently. "You've been quiet lately." Her voice was soft but steady. "Do you love her?" The words hit him harder than any storm. He froze, towel still in hand, his face pale. "Claire, what are you talking about?" She didn't raise her voice. "Don't lie to me, not now." "I know." He sat down slowly, his hands trembling slightly. "It wasn't supposed to happen," he whispered. "It just did." Her chest felt hollow. "And me? Did I just happen too?" He looked away, shame filling the silence between them. "It wasn't about you," he said finally. Claire laughed quietly, bitterly. "It's always not about me. But it's my heart that's breaking, Ethan." He tried to reach for her hand, but she pulled away. The air between them grew heavier with every second. "I never meant to hurt you," he said. "Then why did you?" she whispered. He had no answer. That night, Ethan slept in the guest room. Claire stayed by the window, watching the streetlights glow through the rain-streaked glass. Milo, their dog, rested his head on her lap, sensing the sadness in her quiet breathing. The next morning, Ethan left early for work, or at least that's what he said. The door closed softly behind him, leaving her alone in the silence that used to feel like peace. She walked around the house, touching the things that once held meaning: their framed vacation photo, the painting they bought together, the mug he always used. Everything still looked the same, but the warmth was gone. Hours later, she sat on the couch with her phone again. A new message appeared. From Lena. It read, "I didn't mean for it to go this far. He said you two were over." Claire felt her breath stop for a second. "Over?" He had told her they were over? Her hands shook, but she typed back, "You believed that?" A pause. Then the reply came. "I didn't know who to believe. I'm sorry." Claire put the phone down. For the first time, she wasn't angry at Lena. She was angry at the man who made two women feel like they were both his only choice. When Ethan came home that evening, the air felt different. Claire didn't speak. She didn't cry. She just looked at him. Really looked. And saw the stranger he had become. He tried to explain, to apologize again, but his words fell flat. "It was a mistake," he said. She tilted her head slightly. "You don't fall into someone's arms by mistake, Ethan. You walk there." He didn't argue. He couldn't. For the next few days, they moved around each other like ghosts, polite, distant, pretending not to exist. Claire cooked dinner but didn't wait for him to eat. He said goodnight but never looked her in the eye. Then one night, after another long silence, Ethan knocked on her door. His voice was soft, trembling. "Claire, I ended it, I swear. I want us back." She looked up slowly. "Us? Yes," he whispered. "I'll do anything, please." For a long moment, she just stared at him. Part of her wanted to believe him. The other part remembered every lie, every late night, every message. Her eyes filled, but her voice stayed calm. "You can't rebuild something you already burned down, Ethan." He stepped closer. "Please, Claire. I can fix this." She shook her head. "You can't fix trust." He stood there in silence, his face pale, his heart heavy. She turned away, walking to the window again, the same spot she always returned to when she didn't know what else to do. Outside, rain had started again. Light, almost gentle. The kind that made the world look softer, even when it wasn't. Ethan spoke behind her. voice low. "I'll prove it to you. I'll show you I still love you." She didn't turn around. "Then start by leaving me alone tonight." He didn't argue. He walked away quietly, the sound of his footsteps fading down the hallway. Claire stood there for a long time, her reflection merging with the glass. Her heart felt bruised but strangely steady. She didn't know what came next, but she knew one thing. She couldn't keep living inside a lie. The thunder rumbled again in the distance, faint but growing. She closed her eyes, whispering to herself, "This isn't the end. It's the truth finally catching up." Then, just as she turned off the lights and began walking toward her room, her phone buzzed one more time. A new message. No name, no number. Just 3 words. "He's not done." Her heart stopped. The screen glowed in the dark, and outside, the storm began again. What if forgiveness isn't the end of pain, but only the beginning of something new? The next morning, the rain had stopped, but the world outside still looked washed out. Gray skies, dripping leaves, the smell of wet earth. Inside the quiet house, everything looked the same, but nothing felt the same anymore. The space between Claire and Ethan wasn't filled with shouting or anger. It was filled with silence, the kind that said everything words could not. Ethan had moved back to the guest room after the night of his confession. He tried to make small talk, tried to act normal, but normal had vanished long ago. Every word sounded forced. Every glance felt like walking through broken glass. Claire went through her routines as if she were moving underwater. She worked, cooked, walked Milo, and kept her face calm. But inside, her heart was a battlefield, half aching to move on, half still trapped in the memories that refused to fade. One evening, she found Ethan sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a photo of them from their first vacation together, her hand in his, both of them smiling at the ocean. He looked up when she entered. "I deleted everything," he said quietly. "The messages, the photos, all of it." Claire didn't answer. She poured herself some tea, the steam rising between them like a wall. "I ended it, Claire," he continued. "I swear to you it's over. I want to fix this." She finally looked at him. "You can't fix what you broke, Ethan. You can only live with it." He lowered his gaze. "Then I'll live with it. I just need you to believe me." Her voice was calm, almost too calm. "Believing you is what hurt me the most." The silence that followed was sharp. The clock ticked loudly on the wall, every second reminding them how long this pain had lasted. That night, she couldn't sleep again. She sat by the window, watching the streetlights flicker. For weeks she had waited for an apology. Now that she had it, she didn't know what to do with it. Apologies don't rebuild love. They only acknowledge the ruins. But part of her still cared, not for what they had, but for what they lost. She remembered the laughter, the quiet comfort, the years they spent growing together before everything cracked. That kind of history doesn't vanish overnight. The next morning, Ethan surprised her. He made breakfast, pancakes, coffee, everything she used to love. "I'm not trying to make it up overnight," he said softly. "I just want to start again, even if it's small." Claire hesitated. The smell of coffee filled the room, warm and familiar. It brought back flashes of old mornings, before suspicion, before silence. She sat down, more out of exhaustion than forgiveness. They ate in silence, but it wasn't as heavy this time. Something fragile hung in the air. Not hope exactly, but maybe the faint echo of it. After breakfast, Ethan said, "Let's go for a walk." Just around the block. She almost said no. But then she looked out the window. The sky was pale blue, the first sunlight after days of storms. So she nodded. They walked slowly down their quiet street. Milo trotted ahead, tail wagging. Neither spoke for a while. Then Ethan said, "I know saying sorry doesn't change the past, but I want to earn a future. If not with love, then at least with honesty." Claire glanced at him. "Honesty is a strange word coming from you," he sighed. "I deserve that, but I'm still trying." For a moment, she saw the man she'd fallen in love with. The one who used to make her laugh at midnight, who painted their kitchen together, who whispered dreams into her hair. That man felt lost, but maybe not gone forever. They reached the end of the street and Ethan turned to her. "Tell me what you want me to do, Claire. Anything." She thought for a moment, then said quietly, "Stop trying to fix me. Just fix yourself." He nodded slowly, the truth settling in. Over the next few days, they talked more about their mistakes, their loneliness, their fears. It wasn't easy, but it was real. Sometimes they laughed a little. Sometimes they cried. Healing doesn't happen in a straight line. It bends, breaks, and starts again. But still there was distance. When night came, he slept in the guest room. When morning came, she made her own coffee. They were trying, but trying doesn't always mean succeeding. Then one evening, a soft knock came at the door. Claire opened it to find an envelope on the porch. No name, no return address, just her name written in careful handwriting. She opened it slowly. Inside was a small note. "You don't know everything he's hiding." Her heart stopped. She looked outside. No one there. Just the dark street wet from the drizzle. She felt her pulse race. Could it be from that same number? Was someone playing with her? Or was there more she didn't know? Ethan came downstairs a moment later, noticing her pale face. "What's wrong?" She quickly hid the note behind her back. "Nothing. Just mail." He studied her expression but didn't push. "You okay?" She forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired." He nodded and went back upstairs. When she was alone, she unfolded the note again. Her mind spun with questions. Who sent it? What did they mean? She thought the truth had already come out. But maybe she'd only seen half of it. That night, she couldn't close her eyes. She kept replaying every conversation, every late night, every lie. Maybe Ethan had told her enough to ease his guilt, not enough to reveal it all. As she sat by the window, the rain began again, soft, steady, endless. Down the hallway, she heard Ethan's door creak open. Footsteps. He paused near her room but didn't enter. Instead, his voice came quietly through the dark. "Claire," he said, almost whispering. "Thank you for still being here." She didn't answer. She just closed her eyes, her hand tightening around the note. Outside, lightning flashed faintly in the distance. Not a storm yet, but one coming closer. And as the thunder rumbled somewhere far away, Claire realized something. Sometimes peace isn't found when the storm ends. It's found in learning which storms are worth surviving. She folded the note one last time and looked out the window, her reflection fading in the glass. Because the storm that had started that night, the one between love and truth, wasn't over yet.